here. This way I know it's going.
Okay, there you go. Good. Good morning, everyone. I'll pay you later. I'm just going through announcements. First of all, I just wanted to say thank you to everyone. This week was crazy with VBS and Food Pantry and VBS program, and I got a big mouth.
Good.
And Food Pantry yesterday, you all were amazing. Everything went off without a hitch. VBS was great. We had an average of 10 to 12 kids a night with 18 different kids. So that's amazing because the last couple of years we've had like our kids that come here and that's about it. So we're thrilled. So this week we will be restarting kids group on Wednesday night, 6:30 downstairs. And Randy will be starting with that and teaching, and we're gonna, I know Julia is gonna be, and Vicky's gonna be, so we're gonna be rotating and just trying to do something a little different. We always have the clothing room Sunday and Wednesday, 1 to 3. The last week of the month, Sunday, July 28th, Zach Stanberry will be here again to preach. And then also July 31st, which is a Wednesday, we won't have kids group that night, but Dan Babcock, him and his wife and family are missionaries in Albania. And so we've known them for a long time, and so they have not been to the States for 7 years. Whoa. Yeah, so they're gonna be in Montgomery County for about 2 weeks. Their daughter goes to college in Florida, so they're headed over to the States to get her installed in college, but then they're going to be here. So July 31st, instead of kids group that night, Dan Babcock's going to come and share.
Will you guys be recording that one?
I'm sure.
I think I would.
Yeah.
So I'd like to see that.
Yeah. So I believe that is it. And I know I keep harping on the boxes, but we've got the boxes. We've got stuff inside Randy's. We've got a ton of stuff in there. I have a box at home I have started. This week was crazy. I did not get it finished. So I'm going to get a finished one and have it here just as an example. But that'll be in November when we send those to Franklin Graham's Operation Christmas Child.
Yes. Luke 14, verse 15. And I will read this one, and then we'll jump over probably to Matthew 22. And I'll just read it to you. When one of those at the table with him heard this, he said to Jesus, "Blessed be the one who will eat at the feast of the kingdom of God." And Jesus replied, starts telling him a parable. A certain man was preparing a great banquet, and he invited many guests. At the time of the banquet, he sent his servant to tell those who had been invited, "Come, for everything is now ready." But they all alike began to make excuses. The first one said, "I have bought a field, and I must go and see it, so please excuse me." Another said, "I have just bought 5 yoke of oxen, and I'm on my way to try them out. Please excuse me." Another one said, "I just got married, so I can't come." The servant came back and reported this to his master. Then the owner of the house became angry and ordered his servant, "Go out quickly into the streets and the alleys of the town and bring in the poor, the crippled, the blind, and the lame." "Sir," the servant said, "what you ordered has been done, but there is still room." Then the master told his servant, "Get out on the roads and country lanes, compel them to come in, so that my house will be full. I tell you, not one of those who were invited will get a taste of my banquet." You have another picture? You can't? Get it up there? Yes and no. Okay. It's not really important. I just thought they were cute. But you notice, let me get comfortable. I want to hear all your excuses. I remember a long time ago we had a no excuse Sunday. This was a long time ago. We got hard hats. We got there we go. Excuses everywhere. What else is up there? There's another one hand. Okay. And the other one just says no excuses. There we go. Click. You can click back. There we go. That was it, right? Right there. Go ahead. Just keep telling yourself that. The reason that one was there is each one of them had their excuses, and the only reason, when you give an excuse, you're excusing yourself. No one else believes your excuse. But anyway, we had, yes, sir.
I have a definition for an excuse. Maybe you should give them into prison.
What's that?
An excuse is a lie and thin veil of self-justification.
Yeah, that's a pretty good name for it. I'll go back to what I was saying. We had a no excuse Sunday, and we put it. I don't know if remember how we did it. We put out a flyer or something, and we had that there would be a nurse on staff in case anyone was too sick to come to church, and that was Tara. And we had hard hats available in case someone said, well, the roof's going to fall in if I show up at church. And we had all the little excuses that there'll be pillows in the back in case you're too tired and you might fall asleep during church. And all these different things, just being silly, but we all have excuses. And so there's excuses for church, but there's also excuses in life. And a lot of times people come, I'm sorry, but no. That's really not what we're talking about, the excuses for church. This is excuses for your relationship with Jesus. These people were telling their excuses why they weren't going to make it to the banquet. But who is Jesus talking about? Who's throwing the banquet?
He is.
God is giving a banquet. And there's another name for this, not just a great banquet. Can somebody tell me what it is?
Supper of the Lamb.
The marriage supper of the Lamb. So Jesus is the Lamb, and he's getting married. Who's he getting married to? The bride, the church. When we go to heaven, there is going to be a large banquet with a big table, big enough for everyone, and it's a celebration of Jesus and the church being together. And he is perfecting his bride. When we get there, we will be perfect, just the way he's perfect. We're not there yet, but he's working on us, and we're working on that. And so God is throwing this party, and he's inviting people. Jesus, I forgot to bring it. I was going to bring my little toolbox, and if anyone knows me, how ridiculous that is. But I was going to bring my drill, and my drill has all kinds of different bits, and then it has attachments where you can do different bolts and things, and that's how Jesus uses parables. He uses these parables and he switches them up a little bit, because not all nuts and bolts are the same, and we're the nuts, and they're not all the same. So he switches the stories around and gives a different part for different people. And so we'll find that out as we read the exact same point in Matthew 22, but he's using some different attachments. But the whole point is God is inviting humanity to heaven. and he gives them the way to get there. But we have excuses. Look at verse 18. But they all began to make their excuses. The first one said, I have bought a field, and I must go and see it. Anybody see a problem with that? What's the problem with that? Yeah, he's already bought it, but he hasn't seen it. The next guy, I've just bought 5 yoke of oxen, and I'm on my way to try them out. Let's not say oxen. I just bought myself a new car, and I'm going to test drive it. Does that make any sense? No. These are just excuses. What was the phrase you used, Steve?
An excuse is a lie wrapped in a thin veil of self-justification.
So you got the lie, and it's wrapped around self-justification, so you feel better about yourself.
Right.
And so the last one says, I just got married, so I can't come. So
He needs to come.
better way to celebrate a
Right.
wedding, the guy's nuts.
So they all had their excuses and their reasoning and their thinly veiled lies. Let's go to Matthew 22. And we'll start with verse 1. I said I, but it's just 1. Sorry. Jesus spoke to them again in parables, saying, the kingdom of heaven is like. And we've been talking about that. That's what the parables do. It's like this. Jesus can't show us the real heaven, but he can tell us this is what it's like. Kingdom of heaven is like a king. Who's the king? God. He prepared a wedding banquet for his son. Who's the son? There we go. And he sent his servants to those who had been invited to the banquet to tell them to come. But they refused to come. Okay. Jesus, in one of the parables, he's speaking in front of the Pharisees and Sadducees, all the good Jews of the time. And he's telling them this parable. And he says, I'm sending my servants out to invite people. Who's God's servants at that? Who had been God's servants? Sometimes. Disciples. Who was before them? The prophets, the priests, all those people were pointing towards Jesus, pointing towards the Father. And so they were inviting people, but they refused to come. What happened when Jesus, coming to town on the fold, a little donkey, what did the Jewish people, the church people of the time, what did they do?
Lay down palms.
Well, that's what the Jews didn't do that. Well, I guess some of the Jews did. Some of them were saying, look, the whole world is going after him. What can we do? And they made their plots and plans to kill him. They're refusing to go to the wedding.
Yeah, the Pharisees did.
Yeah. So they didn't want any part of the kingdom that Jesus has been talking about. They want the kingdom the way they think about it and the way they want it. Verse 4. And then he sent some more servants and said, tell those who have been invited, I have prepared my dinner. My oxen and fattened cattle have been butchered. Everything is ready. Come to the wedding banquet. But they paid no attention and went off, one to his field, another to his business. The rest seized his servants, mistreated them, and killed them.
Old Testament prophets.
Exactly. That's what it's talking about. In Hebrews 11, it lists all these people who were beaten, who were chopped in two, murdered, in between the gate and the altar, and between the door and the altar. All these Old Testament prophets, they killed them. But they didn't want anything to do with God. But they were all religious people. Get that? They were religious people. They were supposedly following after God. But when God shows up, they wanted nothing to do with him. This part is scary. The king was enraged. He sent his army and destroyed those murderers and burned their city. Jesus is telling a parable, so it's an earthly story explaining a heavenly truth. Is that going to happen?
It's happening right now. Right now. Israel.
Yeah.
Hamas. And everybody backs Hamas.
There's
Instead of God's people. Instead of God.
there's a point. There's a point in Revelations that it says that they're in that area, and the valley of Armageddon, and the blood is going to be up to the bridles of the horses. That's how much bloodshed there is. And so that's what Jesus is telling. This is what's going to happen in the end. They refused my free gift of heaven. They wanted to do it their own way, and they would choose to kill me instead of doing it my way. And they stand. It says in Revelations that the sword comes out of his mouth and kills them all just like that. So, verse 8. Then he said to his servants, "The wedding banquet is ready, but those I invited did not deserve to come. So go to the street corners and invite to the banquet everyone you find." So the servants went out into the streets and gathered all the people they could find, the bad as well as the good. The wedding hall was filled with guests. But when the king came in to see the guests, this is a scary part of the story. The king came in to see the guests. He noticed a man who was not wearing wedding clothes. He asked, "How did you get in here without wedding clothes, friend?" The man was speechless. What's the point? Can anyone tell me the point of the wedding clothes? Yes, sir.
You must be washed white by the blood of the Lamb.
So when people would come to the wedding, they would provide for them the thing that they were going to wear. This guy came in, "I'm good enough just the way I am. Nobody needs to fix me." And this man was speechless. And the king told the attendants, "Tie him hand and foot and throw him outside into the darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. For many are invited, but few are chosen." He's showing that through these two parables, he's willing to send out his servants everywhere. You're not supposed to go, "Well, this person's a really good person, so we're going to bring him in. This one, the homeless person, we don't want to invite him." He's saying, go out into the streets, bring everybody. The poor, the crippled, the blind, the lame. The ones who I invited aren't going to show up. So this was a story. It was a modern parable that actually happened in New York City. I think this is the coolest story. This lady, she was a businesswoman, had lots of money, got the most expensive, they told the name of it, I don't remember, a big hotel in New York City. Got the banquet room, got the most expensive food, and she was getting married. And the guy didn't show up. And she was told, "You don't get any refund. we've made the food, you've got the room. And so she threw a party. She went out and had the people who were there to go out into the streets, invite every homeless person, every prostitute, every addict, sleep on the street, got everybody up, brought them in, and gave them the greatest night of their lives. And that's the same thing that Jesus is doing. He's inviting people. I want to celebrate, and I want you a part of it. The people who supposedly were with me have shown themselves to not be with me. They're against me. But I'm inviting anyone who will accept. And to me, that's beautiful. Jesus prefaced, I think it was in Luke, he said that when you're throwing a party, don't invite your friends who can return the favor and throw a party and invite you later. Invite people who could never afford to do these things. And that's who we are. And that's who he's willing to invite. And we need to remember that. That's the reason we give out clothes. That's the reason we give out food. That's the reason we do VBS to invite families into the church. That's the reason we do the shoe boxes and to invite people thousands and thousands of miles away from us that we will never see, but we want them invited to the banquet. We want them invited, that we want them there. How much more should we want our family members? How much more should we want the people that we have worked with day after day after day, people that we do work with, people that we see in the towns that we live in, our next door neighbor? How much more when he's willing to bring the crippled, the poor, the blind, and the lame from the streets and alleys of the town? How much more the people that we see all the time? And I think that's what Jesus is pointing out. And so the excuses, part of it was people giving excuses why they weren't there. The rest of it, us, we give excuses why we don't do, why we don't invite, why we don't help, why we don't do our part. And all those are lies with a skin of truth around it. We have a job here on earth, and it is not to accumulate everything we can get. It is not to have the greatest house, the greatest car, the greatest whatever. Jesus did not have a car. Jesus did not have a home. Jesus was homeless. If you met Jesus on the streets in that day, you would probably smell him because he's walking out in the heat in a heavy outfit. And our churches today would go, well, we don't want his kind in here. Because that's exactly what they did in his day. I can only share my heart, and that is the same way last night when I saw someone had shot and grazed the former president. And there were people who were supposed to be doing their job and protecting him. And I said to Tara, this should never happen in this country. Should never happen. We have not been that kind of people. It's the same way today. We have, in different terms, we have the cure for cancer. We have the cure for death. We have the cure for life eternal, to get life eternal. But there's lots of empty seats.
Bingo.
And that's the servants going out and inviting and inviting and inviting. And so that's our job. That is to, and that's not just about this building. That's wherever they go, that they're following Jesus somewhere. And that's what our job is. We have a job here on this earth. And it's not to improve our portfolio. It's to ask people to come with us to the kingdom of heaven. So, thoughts, questions, irritations?